Morsy, I just make sure you think through what this means. Do you know how many people will have to lose their Medicaid coverage just to pay for one of those $50 billion tax loopholes out of a $4 trillion Trump tax giveaway?
Senator, if I were to be confirmed, I would be committed to making sure that folks working at Treasury on tax issues are clear that the policy judgments in these space belong to the Congress.
That's not the question I'm asking here, Mr. Morsy. I know you'd like to duck this one. Do you know how much those big banks pocketed from that extra giveaway engineered in the Treasury Department?
Tax policy in the United States is more than just numbers. It's a reflection of national priorities. In a recent Senate hearing, Senator Elizabeth Warren questioned Mr. Morsy, a nominee for general counsel at the Treasury Department, over his past role in implementing Donald Trump's 2017 tax cuts, which largely benefited the wealthy and corporations.
And being proud that the United States has these economic rules. I think that's a better way to go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Donald Trump ran for president on the promise to lower costs, a promise that he abandoned almost as soon as he got elected. He also promised his, quote, rich as hell donors that he would deliver big tax breaks. So right now, Senate Republicans are working overtime to pass billionaire tax giveaways, partly paid for by kicking 14 million people off their health care, and partly paid for by using magic math to pretend that those tax giveaways don't cost as much as they actually cost. Now, we've seen this play before. In 2017, Trump's first tax giveaway to the wealthy was supposed to cost just $1.5 trillion. And that was after there were a bunch of budget gimmicks to keep the total down. But even that wasn't a big enough giveaway. After the bill passed, the Trump Treasury Department drafted regulations to implement the new law, and corporations sent armies of lobbyists in to write even more loopholes into the tax laws. Now, Mr. Morsy, you were Deputy General Counsel at Treasury at this time, so you may remember lobbyists from foreign banks like Credit Suisse and Barclays one big new international tax loophole for loans that they make to U.S. subsidiaries. Do you know how much those big banks pocketed from that extra giveaway engineered in the Treasury Department?
Senator, I'm familiar with many of the regulations under TCJA, but not the answer
Not
to
that
your specific,
one?
not the answer to your
Well, then I will
specific
tell you, it was $50 billion, according to the Joint Committee on Taxation. Now, today, President Trump and congressional Republicans are working to pass a new set of tax cuts for billionaires, millionaires, and giant corporations. This one, the price tag is around $4 trillion. And this time, they are planning to pay for it in part by slashing Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act by nearly $1 trillion and kicking 14 million Americans off their health care. It is handout time for billionaires and austerity for everyone else. Mr. Morsy, you're nominated to be general counsel at Treasury, meaning you would help in the drafting and the implementation of this bill if it passed, maybe adding another $50 billion tax loophole here and another $50 billion tax loophole there. So, Mr. Morsy, I just make sure you think through what this means. Do you know how many people will have to lose their Medicaid coverage just to pay for one of those $50 billion tax loopholes out of a $4 trillion Trump tax giveaway?
Senator, if I were to be confirmed, I would be committed to making sure that folks working at Treasury on tax issues are clear that the policy judgments in these space belong to the Congress.
That's not the question I'm asking here, Mr. Morsy. I know you'd like to duck this one. My question is, when you create a $50 billion tax giveaway, do you know how many Americans lose Medicaid coverage to make up $50 billion. Do you know what those numbers is? These are just numbers.
Warren raised concerns about a new $4 trillion tax cut proposal backed by Republicans, arguing it would be paid for by slashing programs like Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, potentially causing 14 million people to lose health care. She challenged Mr. Morsy on the real-world cost of tax loopholes, asking how many Americans would lose coverage to fund a $50 billion giveaway. This exchange highlights the ongoing debate over who benefits from United States tax laws and who pays the price.
Senator, again, the policy judgment is with the Congress, and
No, it's
Treasury will
not
be-
a policy question I'm asking you. If you're going to be over at the Treasury Department and you're talking about being in a position where you can actually create a $50 billion loophole, and I know you can do that because you've done it in the past, I just want to make sure when you're doing the pluses and minuses of doing this, you have some idea how many Americans will lose their Medicaid coverage in order to make up for a $50 billion loophole. Do you have any idea how many people have to lose Medicaid coverage to create $50 billion?
Senator, whatever judgments this Congress
10,
makes in the statute
1,000,
to
a
do
million?
that,
Do you have any idea what that number is?
Senator, if I'm confirmed, I'm committed to making sure we are implementing.
Do you not
whatever
have any idea about what that number is, or do you just not want to say it?
Senator, my role would be on the legal side, the policy judgments, the weighing
I
of
will
these
take that
important
as you
issues.
just don't want to have to admit it. It's 700,000 people to make up for a $50 billion loophole. It's like cutting off every single Medicaid recipient in the state of Nevada just to fund another $50 billion loophole like the ones you all managed to do last time around when you gave foreign banks this special loophole. And that's what this bill is all about. Taking from struggling families to give handouts to billionaires and big corporations. In fact, according to independent experts, Trump's big, beautiful bill will take money away from the bottom 40% of families and turn around and shovel nearly $400,000 to everyone who's in the top 0.1%. So let me just ask you one last question. We'll finish this up. At a time when families are struggling with higher costs under President Trump, do you really think that Trump's big, beautiful bill should take away money from working class Americans, Mr. Morsy?
Senator, I think the tax legislation that this Congress passed in 2017 raised living standards and helps Americans across the spectrum. And if Congress decides to take new action, I'm committed to working at Treasury to make sure we implement that.
You know, I just got to say, tax cuts for the wealthiest, a $50 billion loophole here, another one there, and so what? If hundreds of thousands of people lose their Medicaid and access to health care, that's what this bill is all about, and I think it's obscene. Thank you.